Toledo, Ohio State to the first ever team championship in the sport of wrestling. And that was certainly the pinnacle of my coaching career. Only 12 teams have ever done that in the history of the sports.
You're a two-time NCAA Coach of the Year. How hard is that to kind of have that dual mentality of you're trying to create a little family for yourself. You've got this tight-knit group, but you're also part of the mothership where you got to follow the rules.
I'm really focused on the small things that I can control, and that's recruiting the right people and hiring the right people and truly having their best interests at heart. People that believe in your mission and they know your belief system and they buy into your belief system. They know you're authentic and they know that what you're trying to build is an authentic way. When you do things that way, people just help. You know, they help. They want to be part of something that's really authentic and real. Anyone that's come to the Ohio State Wrestling Program and they believe they've arrived, you're in trouble. Listen, you have moments in time where, hey, we can celebrate this in your life, but there's always a chance for improvement.
Wow, so I'm really excited. My friend Grappy is with me today. Tom Ryan from Ohio State, the head wrestling coach at the Ohio State University. Tom, I looked at your bio before I came up here today, and it was too long for me to spit back everything. And at the end of the day, just knowing who you are, I know your 2015 run where you led your team to a national championship for the first time was probably a highlight of your opus and one of many to come. I would imagine that's going to be part of your opus. But I'm curious to know anything in your bio that can even come close to what that national championship did for you personally in your athletic run.
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly the pinnacle of my coaching career. But, you know, I think there's a lot of this. I mean, that was just an amazing weekend. Amazing weekend. You know, Toledo, Ohio State to the first ever team championship in the sport of wrestling. You know, I know you're a wrestler, you're a grappler, right? So, you know, you wrestled at Ohio State, so you know how hard it is. And only 12 teams have ever done that in the history of the sport. So there's been 120 national tournaments and, you know, and 12 have won it. And coming here to Ohio from New York, from Long Island, I knew that, you know, people called Ohio State wrestling the sleeping giant. The state's incredible. The wrestling in the state's incredible. It's kind of in the fabric of the people of Ohio, I think. And so it was a really great, you know, weekend to, you know, for so many people, you know. And so yeah, it was a highlight moment. But you know, there's just a lot of victories along the way that don't get noticed. Your phone doesn't vibrate uncontrollably on every victory that you have. And some of them are, you know, they're not as loud as winning a national championship, but there are so many great things that happen just individually with people along the way that, you know, are moments that, you know, you'd certainly cherish. You know?
You're also, you're a two-time NCAA Coach of the Year, which is a pretty big honor. And I just know just from being an athlete and then also being in the world of business that when you see people hit the pinnacle of how high they can go, the road to get there is hard for a few, not likely, a dream for most people. And it's just full of a lot of what our coach would say is a lot of pain and suffering.
Right.
And there's no question that, you know, it could be a lonely seat to be in that leadership role. And I can only imagine, and we'll get into a little bit because this is really going to be focused on leadership and how hard it is to be a leader. But at Ohio State, you're talking about the 500-pound gorilla. You know, in the business world, we talk about these big 500-pound gorilla, the big corporations, which are just a murder to work in and to get anything done and to make changes and to have to fear, you know, people making changes. And you're like literally in that system. But yet, like when I've been blessed to be able to come over to your practice and see everything, you feel like you're in this little small little pocket that you've like created for yourself. So one of my first questions is how hard is that to kind of have that dual mentality of you're trying to create a little family for yourself. You've got this tight knit group, but you're also part of the mothership where you got to follow the rules. Right. So maybe you just talk to us a little bit about like just the struggle of that and how hard that is and how do you navigate through that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're one of 36 sports there. But you know, wrestling is you know, certainly one of the sports in the state of Ohio that really stands out as one of the elite states in the country. So, you know, like any organization, it's about just people, the right people. You know, I think we focus daily on serving others. the recruiting process is intense like it is in any endeavor, but it's about just surrounding yourself with the right people. And I really don't, I don't feel the sense of the mothership, because I'm really focused on the small things that I can control. And that's recruiting the right people and hiring the right people and truly having their best interest at heart. Truly wanting to serve others. I know, through Built to Lead, it's the old, give somebody, if you want to learn about a man, give him power. You learn a lot about a man's character. And at Ohio State, it's just been, as big as the place is, and as much as we know our place, per se, football and basketball are king there. And we kind of know our place, but it's just, it's been, I haven't felt that.
Have you had to, and do you have a specific example of a time where you had to fight for something? Oh
yeah. There's constant battles, there's constant battles. And I think you fight with people and not against them. I think, just a new complex. Ohio State wrestling was training in a complex that was, at one time, was really nice. And by the time I got the job there, it was in 2006. It was starting to fall behind out of the top 20 programs. And facilities don't win championships, but they certainly help attract the elite people who I want. I want elite-minded people, and I think elite-minded people, when they walk in a place, they can sense whether or not it's deeply, is it loved, and nice things sometimes speak to, hey, they really care about this. Look at this place. They obviously care. So we had the challenge of building a new complex and raising $10 million. And my boss is really special. Gene Smith's one of the best in the business. And he was like, look, let's put a plan together. We aren't going to fund it for you, but we'll give you a piece of land. And if you can get the funds raised. So that was a real challenge for us.
So let me push back just for one thing. If you walked into a wrestling room that was unbelievable, and within 20 minutes of seeing this team and hearing the coach, you knew it's like the companies who put core values up on the wall, but they ain't, you'd see right through that.
Sure.
So you can't tell me that your incredible room, which by the way is amazing. It is amazing. But it has nothing to do with what you've built. It's what you've built.
Sure.
You know that, I know that. So I think, I hear what you're saying, that it's important.
Yeah.
It's first impression maybe, but like that goes away really quick. When they get to know
no
you.
question. And to build that, to build a complex, you need people, right? You need people that believe in your mission, and they know your belief system, and they buy into your belief system, and they know you're authentic, and they know that what you're trying to build is an authentic way. And when you do that, and when you do things that way, you people just help. They help. They want to be part of something that's really authentic and real. And that's how that's how something like that gets built. It was people that, many of them weren't even wrestlers, but they saw the vision and they saw the ministry. Really, I would consider what we do, a ministry, right? To build people. And if it wasn't for that type of approach, then, things like that don't happen.
Yeah. So let's jump into Built to Lead. So for the people listening, Tom and I have a funny story. I went to a YPO event, and Tom was on a panel with a few other coaches talking. And I walked up to Tom. I didn't know who he was. Really, I never met him. And I introduced myself. And I remember in the conversation, I made a comment. I said, my team practices like a sports team, and you probably love it. And you should check it out. It's a leadership program called Built to Lead. And that was it. And I cannot tell you the day that you just walked into my office and just walked into one of our leadership practices. I'll never forget. I still have the picture. I showed Chet the picture recently. I remember just feeling like it was a big honor to have you in the room. I didn't know you at the time, and I thought that was so cool that your Ohio State wrestling coach walked into our team practice. But what I think seared me the most was the look on your face as you were watching my team do what we do, and watching our coach facilitate having this leadership team do what we were doing in this weird thing that we called practice. And I always explain it to people that, you don't become a championship team unless you practice. So why would you go to work and expect you to be a great team if you don't practice? So we gave you a taste of that. And I'd want to start by maybe just hear your take on what your memory serves as far
Yeah.
as walking in and like
I
what?
mean, it was really a blessing that we were on that event together, and then we spoke after for a minute. And I think if you remember, even before I went to you, there's some belief. I know my belief system. I'm pretty strong in my belief system, and being around people that understand suffering is one that I just want people around me that whether it was self-induced suffering or outside induced suffering, just people that have been through hard things, I'm attracted to. And I asked you also, before I went to your practice, I went to a workout in the morning at Chet's place, right? So even before I buy a piece of equipment for the team, I'll test it out. I want to know, how this thing works. Is it going to make me hurt enough? Do I like it or not? So I went to the workout, and I was amazed. I was impressed by the whole group there. Most of them were over middle-aged men, and they were all tough. It was just tough. It was painful, but people pushed through their pain. And I love that. And I'm like, look, I definitely want to come to one of your practices, at Choice. And I was blown away by it. I was blown away by I'll keep using the word authenticity, but it's like people were so authentic with each other. They were so honest with each other. Their words were to, the old truth and love, just sharing with each other. And I'm like, man, if a wrestling team could learn to communicate like your team was, we're going to be really good. And it's a culture that I want to build of just having tough conversations. And yeah, I was blown away by it. I was in awe.
What year was that you started?
Gosh, that was 2015, 14, maybe like 15.
So it was the year before you won the national championship.
Yeah, the year before.
And you ended up hiring Chet as your coach. Yeah. And so at the same time, I'm being coached weekly. He's coming in, kicking my ass, and then he's coming over to your office and kicking your butt. So how would you describe you before Built to Lead and after, in regards to what changes did you kind of internally go through, and how much has it helped you in a way that's been noticeable to yourself?
Just in critical ways. One, I think it's made me better in every way: a better father, a better husband, a better coach. I think when I explain Built to Lead, I think one of the things. Well, first of all, self-assessment. As a wrestler, you self-assess, right? One of the beauties of the sport is that young people have an opportunity to have their life shaken up daily. Most people's lives aren't shaken up that much, but in the sport of wrestling, as a young person, you can have it rocked daily, and you have to self-assess and manage that, and it's rocked daily in a safe way. It's a sport. Losing isn't the worst thing in the world, right? But the beauty of it is that it is constantly under self-review. So I think Built to Lead really made me look inside more. That's one thing. Definitely constant self-assessment, but also no question, Built to Lead, the way Chet just runs, just his system. I think it makes things very palatable, like very digestible. Things are taught in a way that they're just, to me, they're very easy to digest and learn. So yeah, it's turned my world upside down in a really good way. It's helped my team. We're still using Built to Lead. My leadership team met yesterday. We're going through the book, right? What Chet's book.
I met with your leadership team in the last practice when I was there with Chet. You were sick, and it's just studs.
And they're growing.
Chet pushed them to send each other their notes.
Yeah,
and then they were questioning each other, and it was a very different feel than I've seen when I've seen the big group.
Sure.
And so one of my questions I have for you is, when you see people not take to it, and there's plenty of them,
right.
It's not for everybody, right?
Right.
And our coach isn't for everybody either. Right. Just like you and I aren't for everybody. Well, you might be, I'm not. No. But
I know how many doses of Tom you can handle in a week.
How would you explain it though? What is it that people look at therapy, look at coaching, look at self-help, look at getting better self-assessed? What is it that you think they just are repelled? Why? I mean, what's your take on that?
That's a good question. I think that often is they think they can do it, but they think they've got it. And that's a dangerous place to be. I think it's a dangerous place to be. I'll use a wrestling analogy. It's like anyone that's come to my program, to the Ohio State wrestling program, and they believe they've arrived, you're in trouble. Like that's the beginning of the end. You know what I'm saying? Like you won 4 state titles and I made it to Ohio State and my whole dream's been to wrestle at Ohio State. And like, listen, this is, you know, you've never arrived. Like you have moments in time where, hey, we can celebrate this in your life, but there's always a chance for improvement. And I love that about Built to Lead. There's endless learning. There's endless learning. And
I'll never forget when I was in the room and you had met a recruit who was really good, but then you looked at me and said, he won't make it. He won't even be on the team. And I remember thinking, wow, like you hear these kids who have these state championships under their belt and just knowing how hard it is to be a state champ, let alone make Ohio State. And to hear you just say, there's like, I just know, like I've seen him wrestle and I know. And it's just like, it's,
until he changes and looks inside. So I think that's the big, you know, why not? You know, why for me did I wait until I was 36 years old to discover whether there's a God or not? Like truly be able to say that beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is a God. Now I was raised in a home where you were to believe in a God, but I wouldn't have bet my life on it. So what was it that all these people that came to me and said, listen, there is, and you should look deeper. I just wasn't ready to look. My life was going well, but I just wasn't ready to look. So why is it that some it just wasn't fertile? And what is it that makes people fertile? Sometimes it's deep suffering, right? Sometimes.
And how much of it do you think? I mean, I'm sure the answer is yes to all of it, but as far as like a percentage of what you've noticed in your system, people who haven't taken to it from either the arrived, I guess you could say a little bit of sometimes an arrogant side of them that they think that they have nothing to learn from anything more than they already know, but also the lack of identity and that they don't know who they are and they don't want to face it.
Yeah.
Because to get punched in the face and publicly in front of your team, which ironically is the way to build the trust that leads to performance.
Right. It is interesting. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't even see it. You're blind to it.
Right.
And I think in those situations often, I mean, I don't know how you could come to a deeper understanding of yourself when you're not even aware of yourself, right? Until something hits you that causes you to, and I think that's probably the most frequent way. I know it was for me. I talk a lot about chosen and unchosen suffering, and there are two types. And I think they're both critically important. And I think most of us, at one time or another, will experience both.
The storm is coming, I always say.
The storm's coming, man.
Time to turn is now.
And it's now.
Not when it comes, right?
Yeah.
And I think, for me, one of my big aha moments after a decade of doing Built to Lead, and it's become part of my identity. Yet the things that I thought were my identity are no longer. I used to be this wrestler who was an athlete that used to wrestle. Then I was an entrepreneur running a business. And like those things, they kind of come and go as you evolve. And if you don't know who you really are at your core, it's a big problem because you could wake up one day and be completely lost. And I think that's the cause that people find themselves in midlife crisis for, and they don't even realize it because they don't know who they are and their identity is attached to something that's not really who they really are.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was at Hofstra for 11 years, coaching at a wonderful institution out in the East Coast, they gave me really my first chance at being a head coach. I was young, and I'm there for 11, now I'm here for 18. But as soon as I came here, because you wear the Block O, there's a bigger sense of like you have a greater idea, you have something more to say than you did at Hofstra, or your wisdom was greater because of the logo,
right?
And it's just interesting. We'll put a tag on someone and declare them to be a voice of an expertise of some sort, and they have no idea who they are.
And it's funny, and I hear you say that, and I hear that's a target.
Yeah,
because as well as I know, especially in a big system, you can make one mistake,
right,
and they'll kill you.
Absolutely,
and we've
seen it. I've seen it time and time again at Ohio State. Some of my good friends,
It's really not, I say it's not fair. And as I hear myself say it's not fair, it's like, well, that's just how it is. I mean, that's the responsibility that you have is wearing the tag.
But, I think, winning matters. I want to win. I want to be successful. I want the student athletes that I coach to be successful. I want my kids to be successful. Or I want long-term success for people. But the reality is, hey, we won the Nationals, and it was a wonderful feeling in 2015 to win the Nationals. But I don't, true story, right? We win the Nationals. I'm coming home from St. Louis. We won it in St. Louis. I'm driving home from St. Louis. I get home. I got the trophy. It was an amazing, right? It was amazing. I got the trophy. I walk in the house.
You came to the workout the next day with it?
I had it in my car for a while, actually. I would meet, I was meeting friends. I'd bring it to their house. I carried it around for a while. Not too long, but just long enough. But, the thing is, the night before, so it's 11 p.m. and Logan Stieber just won his 4th national title. We're holding the trophy up on ESPN national TV, and the phone's vibrating. The next morning, 6 o'clock, we're on the bus, we're driving home. I get to my house, nobody's there. They were still coming back from the Nationals. No one's there. My dogs are there. And I had to let them out. And so I let them out. They wouldn't go out on the grass. The time I had left for Nationals until I got back, the snow had all melted and there was a lot of dog waste on the grass. I walked outside and scooped for 4 hours. I filled up 4 bags of crap.
Back to reality.
It's back to reality, and it's like the reality is if you're only measuring yourself in your times of greatness or great moments, if that's the measure of your existence and that's the value you place things, you're going to be awfully lonely. That's what that's just going to be lonely. And I don't. It was a wonderful night. It was a wonderful night. It was a lifetime of hard work, right? And by so many people, but it isn't the true measure of how I measure myself, right? Or my scorecard of significance. Yes, it's on there, but there are things far greater that I measure. There's plenty of coaches that win lots of championships and their marriages fall apart, and their kids are struggling. There are people that have been incredibly successful with business and they're alone on their deathbed. Like that's just, you got to know who you are. You got to know what you believe. Otherwise things get upside down fast.
Yeah. So let's shift a little bit to Opus. Yeah. And before I ask you the question about vision and Opus, I have a question that I always love to ask people, and I want you to think it through and just be as specific as you can. It's a visionary type of a question. And the question goes like this. It says, if you and I are sitting here 3 years from now, and we're looking back at the last 36 months, what specifically has to happen for you? And think about it through your coaching. I want you to focus on the coaching part of it in your team. What specifically has to happen for you to be happy with your progress? So 3 years, we're throwing a rock out. We're looking back at that 36 months, and you hit all these things, and that makes you happy with the progress that you've made. What are those things?
I guess I should know that pretty simply, I think it's continuing. I mean, I'm not in a place right now where I wake up in the morning and it's like, well, I wish this was happening in my life. That's not a place that I'm in. I'm not living in that place. So, I don't want to say I would like for the next 36 months from now to look similar to they are now, but I want to continue to have deep relationships with my student athletes. I'd love to say, I'd like to have a bunch more national champs. I'd like to see, my grandchildren continue to progress as amazing people. I'd like to know that the health of my children, there's no issues in the health of my children. My marriage is strong. I'd like to raise $2 million a year rather than $650,000. I'd like to get my program to a place where the family has grown and more people are supporting. Sure, I'd like to win another national championship from a performance standpoint. But I don't think any of those things would move me from a place where I am now. My faith continues to grow. I believe in a God. So I don't think there's too many things really that I could look at and say, well, I hope it's this. I want to continue to spend time. My brother's getting older. He's 2 years older than me, but I want to continue to have amazing moments and times with him. His son's graduating from Ohio State this year. One just graduated from Stanford. My sons do. There's just things that I'm in the midst of the things that I love. And it's like, I think you continue to rinse your Opus and look, but when it's pretty strong and you're pretty locked in on what really matters, I just, I want to continue with more of what's happening.
So funny, you started that off with like you didn't know how to answer it. And you listed literally like probably 15, 20 things. That is really what I was looking for. And it's a combination of mile markers with your success with your team and the relationships you have with everyone, which is really cool because it shows me that you're on that path already. And so it's in order for you to be happy with your progress, you want to continue doing that, which is great. I always say people are successful when they're pointing at something and they're moving towards it, right?
Yeah, right.
Again, when you paint that picture of winning the national championship and you come home the next day, it reminds me of when we're in business and we had to reset at the end of every month. Yeah. And so you get this high, you broke a record, and then the next day reset. Like, we don't care what you did. Sure. What are you doing today? Right? Because that's a history now, and it's hard to reset all the time. I mean, I looked at your guys' schedule over the past. I mean, you've placed in the top in NCAA's since 2015.
In the last 19 years, we've been in the top 10, 17 of them.
Right.
But the top 10 isn't where we want to be.
And you guys
we've been second 6 times. We've been first. I'm good at second.
Me too.
We're in the top 4, I think 8 or 9 times.
Talk to me about the reset. So every year you've had to reset.
Sure.
And is that something that it's a struggle and it's hard because you put all this in, you have to start over, or does that motivate you and get excited?
No, that motivates me. It gets me excited. We haven't been where we want to be. We want to win, and Penn State kind of separated from us a little bit. They've separated from everybody a little bit. So it's a constant self-assessment. How can we narrow that gap again? When we lost them, we were second in 2018. There's, I don't know, a couple of 100 matches in a national tournament that determined that. I mean, it came down to one match. If we win this particular match, we're the champions. Now it's separated. They separated from us. So it's constant, self-assessment. It's constantly, what can we do better? Why did we not get that recruit? They got this recruit. So it's endless. It's endless. I think the framework, for the most part, stays that you don't throw away the blueprint. The blueprint's good, but what things can we do that will narrow the gap? That has. And it's not only us with them, it's every school. They've separated themselves.
So the NIL gets introduced. NIL, for people who are listening that don't know it, it's where the college athletes now can earn income for the first time in history where they can make money and you can be bought. You can be bought. And I'm curious, when you paint your picture of an opus and you have this vision, and I always admire like people in your position, because an opus for your work, it's a lot easier to shoot for something like a national championship than to be in a business like I was in and trying to like come up with some big vision. I mean, it's very hard, right? And so, again, I was wondering when I asked you the question before, is a national championship in there? Like, when you look back in 3 years, like, is that like, that's of course a goal, but you want to win a national championship.
Yes, of course.
And so when NIL kind of hits the scene and kids now are shifting because they shift. At the end of the day, kids were always shifting, and kids were coming. You were getting a lot of them at Ohio State because you're Ohio State and you got the tags. And then, people will go to these big schools, and Penn State, you say, pulls away a little bit. Why? How? And how does that just happen? And like, how do you make that happen here in Columbus? Like, what causes that? Is it NIL?
I mean, it certainly has helped, right? Money certainly has helped. If a student athlete has a full ride at one place and a full ride and $4,000 a month at another place, that's a real pull. However, there's also some, for some, they're unviable, right? It's like, this is where I want to be and it doesn't matter. And ultimately, we want people that want to be with us that are at a very high level, that love Ohio State and want to be Buckeyes. And it's ingrained in the fabric of them that for years it's been, I got involved in wrestling in 7th grade. I came to a wrestling camp at Ohio State, and there's nothing more that I want than to be there. So you're balancing, right? You're balancing that, right? You're balancing the ones that just truly want to be there. But there are some also, I'd like to be there, but I also like this place and they're offering me more than you're offering me. So, this year, our team, we have nobody that's on an NIL that was paid to be with us. Every guy in my team was recruited by us out of high school. Wow. Authentically, and that's a beautiful thing for us. I'm proud of that, but I don't want to stake my stake in the ground on the fact that there's always who will be. If we look at someone, I will say this though. I think that having tough conversations and being open and honest with your team is the most fundamental way of building deep trust. And if they don't trust you, if they're always questioning his motives, you have a real problem in your organization. So let's say, I'll use an example of this year in the NIL space. There's a couple of weight classes where we don't appear to be elite in terms of the rankings. So I met with everybody on my team in those weight classes. And I talked to them about a couple of men that were in the portal, in the transfer portal. And the question simply is, if you or me what would you do? Right? And they just open conversations with young people. They're 18 to 22. And sometimes all they can see is their life. And one of the questions in the recruiting process is, what are you willing to do for the team, right? The All Blacks, the Australian football, that was out of their book. They asked them, what would you do for the team? And the conversation was incredible, the growth that occurred just among the team. And look, I want to know what you think. If you were me, would you bring them in? And every one of them said yes.
Wow.
So hold on. You're telling me that you're okay with me making your life harder to make this team, that I should get this guy? And he said they all said, every one of them, I want to hear it. Tell me what.
Are they strong enough than that?
I mean, it's amazing, right? And then you question: is that how you really feel? Are you in you're in the principal's office?
Because what does it say if I say otherwise?
What do I say if I say otherwise? And every one of them was it. Now look, the guys had 1 year left, and these guys have 3 or 4 years left. So there's other.
I don't care if I'm coming to Ohio State
right.
and you ask me that question,
Right.
I'd be crapping my pants because if I told you, you know what, coach, I did everything to come here and I wasn't going to, and I came here to give you everything, and now you're going to bring a guy in to trump me. Like if I said that, I would come off so the wrong way. Would you be able to hear that?
I'd be able to hear it, but I would say I would have it would tell me that I've got to help you grow.
Would you have been able to do that?
Yeah, I did it.
What do you mean?
I did it. I mean, I left a full scholarship and walked on at Iowa, and everybody I knew there was an All-American in my weight class that was better than me. And I would have said to Gable, if you can find someone to beat me, you should. That's your job. Your job is to put the best team on the mat. And if your job is to put the best team on the mat, then you should do that. And if you think you can find someone, good luck. Right? Like because that's truly how I felt.
Has the NIL changed the kids?
I mean, I think we're young in it. We're young in it. We're really in year 2.
Right.
We're in year 2. We signed the number 1 recruiting class in the country 2 years ago. The first year that someone got paid about $175,000 to wrestle for 1 year. We had the number 1 recruiting class in the country. Not a single one of those athletes, those student athletes, we signed the number 1 pound for pound, number 2 pound for pound, number 3 pound for pound. Not one of them was offered an NIL deal at Ohio State. They came on they came on athletic aid only.
It's amazing how many businesses are not aware of this. And I wonder, why are people not tapping in to leveraging these athletes to sponsor their brands, to talk about it is like you can get it for cheap. There's a lot of kids who will do anything just to make some extra cash.
Absolutely.
And there's just such a gap right now of just lack of communication. I know Ohio State's trying to do a lot of things, but I don't hear about it. So and I know I've talked to people and they're not even aware of it. I mean, there's just not that much press about it.
I think it's young. I think it's still early. And I think Ohio State's working diligently at making sure that, because we're in a booming area, right? I mean, we're in a different, region than some of the, I'll just use wrestling, and some of the wrestling regions in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
These institutions are the region. Columbus is booming. So, we feel like we're in a good position to put our student athletes in a place where, they can get more than a full scholarship, right? And they can.
Did you feel that you had to sell harder when the NIL kind of came about and you had to go talk to these guys that you wanted to recruit? Did you feel like it changed your style at all?
I think I didn't with this particular group. It was really cool that they just really wanted to be together. And you're looking for the person you're looking for the individual that is more interested in building something than buying something, I would say. That's where it's like, look, Penn State's been on top for a little while here. Do you want to be part of the group that knocks them off? Like, I need people that think that way.
Right.
I don't want to join them. I want to beat them. And these 3 men, and others. There was more in the class that was five or six really tough guys in this class, and they'll all be redshirt freshmen this year. But certainly the NIL space has made recruiting far more complicated.
Yeah. Do you currently have any conversations that you have delayed because they're hard, and you're going to get your butt kicked in practice, that you need to go have that conversation? It's probably just habit now and discipline that you go have these conversations. But I'm curious if you were to just walk through your journey of like pre-built to lead to now built to lead when it comes to dealing with conflict and dealing with conversations and telling people the truth and hitting them with something that is going to hurt, and it's going to hurt you because you have to go deliver that message. Is that getting out of bed for you now? Is that still hard? Do you have any now that you're delaying?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's still hard. And here's why it's hard. It's hard because for me, because I want it to be perfect, right? I want the perfect combination of truth and love, of grace and truth. Like I want to authentically hear what, and sometimes your words aren't perfect, right? So what's really helped me a lot with Build to Lead is to have them repeat, what did you hear me, like to go deeper. What did you hear me say? Now write it out. And so I think, meetings used to end with me talking, and now they end with me listening. What you hear, I want to make sure that you leave here, getting the gist. But sometimes there's some conversations now and I worry too much. Can he handle it? Is he ready for it? Is he ready? Is it going to be beneficial? Like to share something with somebody with the intent of it not being beneficial, or thinking it may not be beneficial. Well, maybe it should wait. So I think that those are the challenges, I think, for me. And there's an insecurity at times. Especially
with wrestlers. Wrestlers, they have the tough man mentality. Right. It's hard to open up and be that authentic, especially when it can come off a little bit as a weakness, maybe to some people. They feel that way. Have you ever felt that you've reached a point in your practices with your team, like what you saw with my team?
Yeah.
Have they gotten to that point ever?
What do you mean?
Meaning they can authentically either call each other out.
No, I think it's a journey for us. I don't think that we're where we want to be. One, not only calling each other out, but we talk about the difference between nice and kind, and the kindness that's needed. Like we had this meeting yesterday, Built to Lead meeting. What does kind look like in the wrestling room? You know what I'm saying? Like what does truly being kind look like? And I got to see firsthand, right, an organization that's won 17 championships. I was part of a team that won a couple national championships. And the kindness I saw was the merciless. Like the word I would use is like merciless toward each other when you're in practice. Like that's being kind. If you really want,
I felt like that with Chet sometimes.
Right.
Where I knew he loved me, but he would kill me.
This is like merciless,
right.
and that's really, So I think that words and hey, I wrestled you today in practice, and you had more to give, man, and you didn't give it, right? But I think in the midst of practice, to flatten somebody if you can is what you should do, and that's being kind. To not flatten someone that you should flatten, and you can, taking it easy on somebody when you shouldn't. I have a much easier time doing that, quite frankly, physically, than with words.
Right. Look,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I remember my goal when people used to walk out of my office before Build to Lead was to make sure they were happy.
Yeah.
Because I figured my thought was if they go back to their desk, why do I want them upset? Why do I want them pissed off?
Right.
But I realized it's just the worst way to lead because I was being fake. I wasn't being, and then when I started hitting people with the truth, they didn't walk away happy, but they come back and they.
Right. So, and happy keeps you in the wrong frame of mind.
Right.
It just does. I was happy at Syracuse before I left, and I would leave practice relatively happy. And I left practice unhappy all the time. I was always beaten for a long time. It was a lot of beatings, 6 months of just, and then you take it home, and because you're so, you got truth. How can I manage this truth? Okay, they were stronger. Well, I better get lifting more. They were more fit. I got tired. I was doing fine until I got tired. I couldn't finish a single leg. It's just constant self-assessment when you're being told the truth, and there's very little self-assessment when you're not.
Right.
Unless you're in a place where you're really living in truth and you understand truth. But I think bringing truth is critical.
So one of the things I love about just the whole leadership kind of mode of being of just who you are is it's just always constant, never-ending learning and getting better. So if 2 questions. One, if I'm sitting with Chet today and I ask Chet, what's one thing the one thing he has to work on most right now? What do you hear him say?
Tougher.
Meaning what?
So I would say he views me as more tender than tough. And it's interesting. I was away, and I was harder on myself than I am on others. I should be equally as hard. This is the standard, right? So I would probably say that.
And tougher with
but I'm getting
the guys?
Yeah, just overall. I think, yeah.
I mean, I hear that because I've heard that before too. But I would also say that sitting down with guys and having them look at the portal
right. That's pretty right. No, I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
I've gotten
Holy
to
cow.
a place where, look, this is what I would have wanted, and I think this is the right way to handle it. And you want to know what I'm thinking? This is what I'm thinking, and I love you, and you know, every meeting begins with that and ends with that. I do. I care about you.
And what's the one thing that outside of tough and tender, one that you're hard on yourself, that you're trying to close a gap, you're trying to get better? It's just one thing that, like, if I had to work on one thing now,
I have to write more. I have to be I have to be more diligent in writing. I have to be more disciplined with my writing, daily reading, daily writing.
And so what does it look like if you're going to sit down and write? Because I talk about power in the pen all the time with everybody. Yeah. And, you know, again, we always hear leaders are writers, and you get your thoughts, and there's so many benefits to it. If you were going to sit down and write today and you found a block of time where you're going to sit down, you know, with Built to Lead, there's just so many frameworks you can play with. People go into their worldview. They talk about their principle, their opus, their vision, their gaps. What focus would you be focusing on right now if you were to write?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, sometimes it's just what's relevant in that day, going home at night and getting clarity on it. So we had wrestle-offs yesterday. Just my perception of wrestle-offs, right? And just getting more clarity on what I saw, what athletes were saying after the wrestle-off, the texts that I were getting from the guys that won and the guys that lost. Like really, really absorbing that more than I read the text. It made me think about something, and then I moved on. I think really going deeper into the events of that day.
Cool. And if you self-assessed yourself, how would you rate yourself in being tuned in to the guys in the room, so that, you know, when you catch someone who's having a rough day, or you catch someone who's going through a hard time, and, you know, they keep it to themselves. They kind of bottle it up, right? They don't support. They go into that dark place. Are you good at picking up on that, or is that a weakness of yours? Like, and then being able to, like, tap into it to pick that guy up when he needs it.
That's a great question, and I think that's something that's just critically important. You know, I rely a lot on my staff as well to be the same. So we film everything. Every practice that happens at Ohio State is filmed. Wow. So we can go. At night, I go back every night. I go back on my iPad and I watch the practice over, because I find myself trending toward what I like to see. I leave practice, I'm like, that was a great practice. You know, and I watch it on film, I'm like, it's a great practice. The three guys I fell in love with because they were doing so well. Everybody else was a train wreck. You know, it's like, I just like beautiful things.
Right.
And my eyes are on the beauty in there. And it's really helped us, you know, as a staff. You know, the athletes are aligned with the coach. On live wrestling days, we assess their training. I send 5 positive videos to every 1 negative video. So just this whole ratio thing of making sure that there was beauty in your practice, but here was the things that you really got to work on.
What's the why behind that, so people listening can understand?
Yeah, just I mean, the why is just the way the mind works. I mean, the way the brain works. We want them just because you're in a battle against constant negativity, and we got to bring positivity. You got to fight at 5-to-1 ratio. So there's a lot of positive in this. You did really good at this today, and this is brilliant. And look at this, which is brilliant, and this is brilliant. And then, hey, tell me what you should have done here. You know, what do you think you could have done differently there? So, so it's an area that I've got to continue to grow in, because I struggle with being all over the place. You know, I struggle with my mind's racing constantly, and it's just being in the moment. And so it's challenging my coaches that way, and also making sure that
you cheat towards your high performers.
Yeah, it's towards our high performers.
So how do you find a healthy balance in that? You've got all these new kids who are probably a bit insecure coming into a program and knowing they're not the be all end all anymore like they were, and yet you're got guys in your room that it's very intimidating for people to be in your room, because you got national champions everywhere. You got guys who are winning worlds. You got everything going on in there. How do you give those guys what they need, but not suck the energy out of you because you want to make your high performers even better?
Yeah, I mean, we've been challenged as a staff, to really look at our roster. So we have a roster of 33. That's the most we're allowed to have. And we've, you know, when I was first at Ohio State, there was no cap. You could have Major 1, now Title IX proportion. So we were given a cap. And I realized that the cap's been good, because sometimes I just love the sport. And I think that everybody is going to gain from the sport. If you're not in the room, I can't help you. But the reality is sometimes the best thing for you is to not be in the room. And the best thing for us is to not have you in the room. So, so I think, just it makes you look deeper into who you have and why are they there, and who should be there and who shouldn't be there. As a staff, we've looked more closely in that. Just because you have 33 allowed, doesn't mean you should have 33. They should all be swimming in the same direction per se. Yeah, but so what is what
I was just talking about cheating towards your high performers and guys feeling lost, and they're not the BLNL like they used to be. And you as a coach, I mean, I know for me, I used to try to take. I cared. And I wanted to help the people who weren't as good get up. And so I was trying to lift, but I realized it drained me. And I realized I was ignoring my high performers because they were great and they were doing their things. And so I figured I can lead them to do their thing, keep producing, get these guys up. But I was backwards, and after I got hit and practice from focus on the high performers, push them, they'll bring the whole system up, and that works.
Yeah, no, it absolutely works. And it's critical. It's critically important. So I would say that, I lost my train of thought there. But number one is make sure you've got people in there that deeply love it and care and they may not help you win a national championship by their performance, but there's other ways. They're great partners. Their effort's incredible in practice, right? We measure two things with effort and skill. Your passion to give, and I'm not here to motivate you every day. So that's number one, is making sure that everybody in the room has a sense of, I got to get better today. That's number one. And number two is just, making sure, like I'm getting older, right? I'm 54 now. There was a time when I could wrestle all day, every day. I can't do that now. So even physically, who do I surrender my body to? Physically, right? I trend toward the ones that are elite, right? Otherwise, it's an hour of me physically giving something up, and I've given it to someone that, quite frankly, doesn't have it. They don't have it. They're not going to win the nationals for us, but they're incredibly important to our team. But it doesn't mean, I'll grab lunch with them. I'll have lunch meetings with my freshmen to make sure they're all doing okay, because I love them. I care about them. I want them to do well. But absolutely, the national tournament, there's 33 guys in the room. You can win with 6 studs.
Has anyone ever not been it and become it?
Man, no.
Wow. What is it?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I'm a head coach now for 30 years. I've never seen someone that didn't have the it factor and then uncovered it at this level.
Wow.
At this level. I mean, I've seen, it's like the it is, you have to be a psychotic competitor. I'm saying? Like borderline insane.
Meaning like people who don't understand
the desire to attain what you want is so deep. It's so deep, there's nothing you wouldn't do to attain it. Like it's crazy, like craziness, like ultimate competitor. Not someone that loves to work out and works out all the time. That's loving working out. I'm talking about loving desire to win.
You apply that anywhere in life? Is it outside of sports?
The desire to win, desire to, and of course it's to fulfill, from a heavenly standpoint, a godly standpoint, it's to be what God intended you to be, whatever that is. And typically that's going to be something you love. My son was more athletic than me, right? My second son was more athletic than me. I love wrestling far more than him. He loves business far more than I do. He's killing it in business. I'm doing well in wrestling. So I think you got to find out what you're loving.
Does he have that it that you talk about for business?
He says it in business is unreal. I mean, he tells me I've like, do this, I don't do it. He was right.
Would you describe what you are attracted to as that it?
Yeah.
Anywhere in life?
Yeah, anywhere in life, the it. Just find me someone that's, I'm in love with my garbage man. I'm in love with the guy's amazing. This guy's amazing. I try to see him as much as I can. I mean, he's just the best garbage. I mean, he's great at what he does. He'll be, I don't care if there's 5 inches of snow, 10 inches of snow, minus 20, guaranteed. All the young guys aren't on the truck that day. I'll wait. It's him. He's on the truck. And he's alone. He's alone. Why do you come to work? I love what I do. People need, I got him. I'm sorry. So yeah, the it is number one, right? The it is this deep, deep passion to be elite, to be the best. And then of course there's a lot of other things that you look at, right? But that's it.
So we talk about both being a master repairman. So as someone who's kind of out in front And a talker, a motivator, someone who inspires, who has a big opus, we're bound to take a lot of risks. And we will sometimes say things that will either hurt people and we don't even know it, or sometimes we say it and we're just not perfect in every communication, and we'll have to repair that. Right. Can you think of a something that has happened over the past year, whatever, that you can think of where you had to kind of humble yourself and actually go and do the repair work with someone on your team, with a coach, can you give us an example of something?
Student athlete, just struggling. I was handling him. I didn't realize he was struggling the way he was struggling. We had a conversation that was difficult. It didn't go well. It didn't get any better for him, and he was carrying it. And then I'm close with his family as well, and they let me know that, hey, listen, he's feeling differently, I think, than you think he's feeling. So it was going back in and sitting down with him. And
was it a blind spot?
For sure, for me. Absolute blind spot. Yeah, I mean, I love the guy. Kid's amazing guy, great leader. But it was, man, how did I?
Do you question how did I miss that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and then you repair it, and you just repair it. Hey, I got a lot going on too, man. I thought I was reading this right. I read it wrong. I love you, man. That was not my intent. And sometimes it's to your point earlier, just about you ask a question, and it's hard for me to tell my boss everything I'm thinking. I'm 54. I love Gene, but he's intimidating. There's a real intimidation factor. So it's not easy to do. But I want to make sure I want to be a leader that empowers them to know that you can. So that you can challenge me, challenge my thinking, challenge what I said. I don't know. I don't agree with you. I see it differently. Okay, that's fantastic. People that do that, I fall in love with.
Right.
It's I want that.
I worked for 25 years to try to build that.
I want that. I genuinely want that. I'm not going to hold that against you.
But it's interesting because
then I can. If it's illogical, I'll be able to prove how illogical it is.
It's a weird thing though, because one thing I learned from being in a position for 25 years and then getting out of it, everything changed. When you're not in that authority position, it's not as scary anymore. When the person can't kill you, when they can't it's amazing. And it just goes to show me myself that I'm only afraid of one thing and one thing only. Yeah. Because everyone putting on their pants the same way. Yeah. And I don't care who you are, you're struggling with something. Yeah. You can hide it up really well, right. But everyone's struggling. So I think, people who play the power play, okay, so people do that. But for someone who's scared, there's always someone who's better. There's always someone who's going to be higher up, in some level. And in wrestling, even more so, because there's always going to be a guy who can come on a good day and beat your ass.
Right. Yeah, I think just my self-awareness is decent. I think I have decent self-awareness. I can be very overbearing, and I know that, and I really want to empower my coaches. I don't run every practice. I make sure that my coach, it's if I want them to grow, they got to lead practices. If I want them to grow, they got to lead meetings. They got to be, so I think I think that all the years of coaching, all the mistakes, that, there's a high sense, Built to Lead has helped me with the voting process, right? The old school thumb. How do you got? Listen, here's how I feel about it. Here's my assessment of it. Everyone puts their thumb sideways. Are we going yes or no? Right? A 1, 2, 3. Who says get him? Who says don't get him? Who says handle this way? And I think it's just really important to have people around me that aren't yes people, and to empower them and to put them in tough situations. This is an easy conversation. Okay, you come lead the conversation, right? You be in the meeting with me. You share the news. I think just yeah.
So we're wrapping up our time now. Yeah. So just a couple last questions. So high school athletes, I got my 2 kids are in high school. And so I'm going to their sports events and I'm seeing all these kids, and you hear them talk, and you hear them talking about the really good kids on the teams that, they want to advance and they want to go into college. And it's such another level. It's such a higher level. What advice can you give high school kids who want to pursue a career in athletics in college that they're not thinking about, they don't know, they can't know because there's just no way they can know, but you've been in the system for so long and you've seen everything. What's something that you think would be helpful for kids to just be more aware of and kind of checking down that journey? So
for kids' growth, I think one of the biggest challenges for kids are overbearing parents. I think that's probably the biggest often the thing that, I don't know if I listen to a lot of leadership stuff as well. And one leader I listened to said, one of the, for a boy to truly become a man, his father has to pass. That's an interesting statement to me, right? Like, whoa, what are you talking about? Like so it's almost like the burn the boat, the Vikings, the burn the boat. You're on your own now, kid. It's, you've got to figure this tough stuff out on your own. I don't necessarily completely agree with that, but I'm not, but there's an element to it that's like, wow, it's just, it's striking to me that he said this, so.
And now more than ever, parents are so much.
They're just helicopter. They're just like, let the kid fail, be dad. So I think the best thing for a kid is to be dad and find people that you trust that will challenge him, and you just be dad. And that was hard. I had a kid that wrestled. Sitting in the top of the bleachers, not saying anything, was the best thing for his growth. So I think, and when there is communication, it's not about winning and losing. It's about your effort.
But what can a kid do if he's got parents that are doing that? What can a kid do? Like, how can he?
Yeah, it's really hard. I see it now. I see it in student athletes that I'm coaching now that had that. That there wasn't 5 positives to 1 negative. There were 5 negatives to 1 positive, and there's doubt, right? And there's doubt, and doubt's a dangerous thing in our lives, right? Where it's real. We have to overcome it, but it's a scary thing too, and focusing on what you can control is unbelievably important.
Right, because you can't control your parents.
You can't control your parents. You can't control them, and you have to have a filter. You have to know that the old saying, being a landlord of your mind. You have to be a landlord of your mind. You got to protect it, and you got to know when to protect it. And you got to know what belongs in it and how long it's allowed to stay there. And you have the power to evict it, and don't let it ruminate over and over again in your mind. So, I've seen both sides. I've seen parents that are overbearing and their kids have done pretty well. And I've seen kids that have parents that just allow coaches to coach and climb really high. And I think at the end of the day, ultimately, as a dad, I want to have a relationship with my son that's healthy.
Right. It's awesome.
So I think I answered it. Yeah. I don't think I answered that too well, but it's not.
Well, it leads me into my next
struggle.
point.
That's the thing I would say.
Because the problem is it's hard for the kid. The kid really has lack of control. I mean, really, it's good advice for parents to be careful and be more aware.
So the answer for an athlete directly is you put yourself in the toughest situations you can as often as you can. That's number one. Learn that struggle is good for you, and learn that tension is good for you, and learn that stress can be really healthy for you, and know that during the workout, that's your objective. And when you're out of the workout, let it go, and then do it again the next day, and know how to let it go. So I think that's really important.
So we're going to end on this, a topic, one of my favorite topics. I'm actually doing an interview series right now, talking to entrepreneurs and professional athletes about discipline. And it is unbelievable how if you just compare someone to another person, just go down the line of 100 people and you look and ask them, or just look at their life and see what kind, how many, what are the specifically disciplines they have in their life that have helped build them into who they are, right? And so some people can be completely crazy, like your its, right? And they're disciplined in a way that people can't even fathom. They can't understand how you can be so obsessed about something. And then there are some that just live a very healthy life because they have healthy disciplines in their life. So my first question as we wrap this up is, can you share a couple of your disciplines that you feel like, they guard you, they protect you, they keep you in line with your vision of who you want to be because you've put these things in your life and it's just like, now it's just part of my life. It's who I am.
Yeah. I mean, early morning, get up early. I'm an early morning person. Watching sunrises are healthy for me. It's a discipline that I believe in. Watching the sun come up matters.
You really do that?
Yeah.
So like you wake up at what time?
I'm usually up. I don't need an alarm anymore. I mean, 6 I will never sleep.
Where do you go outside and just hang out?
Go outside. I have a window in my house. I have a beautiful giant window. I can see it as sunrise every morning if I'm there. If not, it's in the restroom and it comes up. But just sunrises matter. Sunsets matter. I mean, I rush home for a sunset. If I can be in my house by sunset, they matter. I got friends that.
Why?
Because life's precious, man. I think it's beautiful. I love beauty. I think I I've got friends that are getting older. Some are struggling. Some have passed. Some just, you don't take anything for granted. It's the beauty. Day begin, day end. I start every day with a certain drink I use. It's lemon. It's lemon, it's honey, it's garlic, it's ginger, and it's cayenne pepper. The exact proportion every morning with some hot water. Every morning, it's a discipline. It's an incredible cleanser. It's good for me. It makes me feel incredible. Working out. I mean, just it doesn't have to be torturing yourself, but sweat every day. I think it's really important because I think my life is so easy. My life's a joke. I mean, if I don't have the fan on my feet at night, I'm pissed. If my foot's not out, if the fan's not in the perfect direction, hitting my big toe, I can't sleep. Right? And life's just become so easy. And it's just my life's easy. My life's beautiful. Everything about it's the biggest struggle I have is someone missed study table. A guy that I love, he didn't go to study table. Like life is just, right now, it's been an incredible season of like my job. I'm around people.
Hasn't always been.
It hasn't always been. It's been hard, right? But like my job, I go to work and I'm smiling. I'm around people that love what they do. Everybody loves what they do. Everybody in my facility is the number one place they wanted to be. Like how much gratitude. There's just gratitude everywhere. So you have to forcefully bring suffering into your life. You have to forcefully do it. You have to bring hard things into your life because when it's going so well, I know that I'm soft. And I know that because every time the bike asks my heart rate to go to 170, I'm like, why am I doing this? So I know it brings you to a place of you're soft, you can't do it alone. And that reminder is just really important. Prayer, obviously, prayer, gratitude, the things you're grateful for.
You see, obviously, unfortunately these days, it's like people moving away from that and they idolize money and fame and honor and everything that they want. That is, I talk about everything with a price tag is meaningless because I've seen guys lose everything and they built it back up. Yeah. But you lose something free. Yeah. That's the most important thing in your life. You can't get it back. That's the most important thing, right? Yeah. So, and regarding the kids, outside of it and outside of just the craziness of working out, disciplines that you can just, you see in other people that you admire and inspires you, not yours, but things that just disciplines that that like champions, people who are just not average, they've built this into their life and it makes them an outlier. It makes them different, distinctly different. I think
strong people that have deep relationships with others. I mean, there's just like deep, good friendships, like lifelong friendships. This thing I built. This is a built. A lot of the people I'm around are built to lead people. Right. A lot of my friends are built to. I trend toward them. So this thing of the I love tos. People that really, they write out their I love tos and they do them. They actually do them. So that's been something that's a habit now that I have of like I love to talk to my daughter. So every week I know I'm going to talk to her. Like I'm going to talk to her, and I make sure I plan out. And this is people that I admire. So I'm just talking about things that I do now because the people I admire do them. It's like, wrestling can consume me if I let it. But in my calendar, I have things that are just more important than wrestling. And I make sure I get to those things. Otherwise, I'm only doing the things I need to do, not things I love to do. So I think so there's people in my life that, they really value the things that, you talked about.
That don't have a price tag.
That don't have a price tag. Right. They value them. Right. So I don't know. At the end, I've just been really blessed. I have a family. So the number one thing that allowed me to take chances, I believe this, take risk, is that not everyone is raised in a home like I was raised, right? Some people take risks and they grew up with, they didn't know their dad. Their dad was not a good person in their life. He was not a good example. I was 100 steps ahead of everybody in the way I was raised. Everybody that didn't have what I had. I didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have much at all. But we had everything that you couldn't put a price tag on, that's priceless, we had. Mother was honest, let me deal with my own things. A relationship between my stepdad, they've been married for 44 years, and my mother was incredible. I saw deep love in the house. I had trust in the house. I saw hard work in the house. Like I saw all these things that this is how you do it. This is how you do it. And it doesn't make you wealthy, but it makes you extremely.
If you live it, you can give it.
Yeah. So if you live it, you can give it.
Yeah. So you can't tell your kids how to live their life. You can show them.
Right. Right. And just being in that environment was just, it allowed me to leave a full ride and walk on
Right.
somewhere. Like it just gave me the courage to like, money ain't the end all be all. Sure, it makes life better. And the more money I've made, I've got some things now that kind of make life. I have a big window I can look out of. If I didn't have some money, I couldn't buy that big window. But
Right.
but in general, those are not things that.
Right. And the window could be taken away like that.
Yeah, you're right, of course.
Right. So at the end of the day, we know how important money is because I know how passionate you are about the facility. And if you can really quick end on why you raise money fundraising. Everyone thinks Ohio State, you got all this money. What are you doing? But you have something a little special and unique at Ohio State. If you could just tell everyone who's listening what that is and why you're raising money and what your goals are and what you need help with.
Yeah, no, we need help. Again, the big giant Ohio State, you think there's endless. You see that football stadium, we sold $300,000 in corn dogs, at the last game, $500,000 in water, it's like, that doesn't help Ohio State wrestling. It's wonderful. So we have an Olympic training center in our facility. So the big dream of the elite wrestlers is to win Olympic gold, right? That's the epitome of that's attaining the ultimate in the sport. Is to win Olympic gold. And we have an organization called the Ohio Regional Training Center. It's an affiliate of the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. And our annual budget is now $2 million a year. And what we do with that money is we do a couple things with it. So the RTC, there's an element of it that can help student athletes and from an NIL standpoint. There's an element of it that helps elite wrestlers after college. Now, there's no pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is winning Olympic gold. So what it does is it helps fund Olympic hopefuls. It keeps them in the sport. It is very difficult to work a 9-to-5 job and train for the Olympics. So it augments. Nobody gets wealthy on it, but it's enough where it can alleviate having to work full time, and they can do some part-time things, and they're required to do community service and things like that. But it is the X factor. It is the X factor for our program. It is the single most important entity in Ohio State wrestling. Ohio State cannot give us the funds. They can't take the corn dog money and give it to the RTC. They're not allowed. It's against the rules. So we got to fundraise, and we got a great family of people that help us. I know
you do a great job.
Yeah,
You really make people feel like they're part of your family. Yeah. So people who want to help and contribute and be part of it, highly recommended to help and donate and just be part of it, because you make people, you have this inclusion of like, you're part of our family now. And I love that you guys do that, because most people, they take your check and, but you really do a good job with that. So
and you can see your money at work, right?
Yeah.
You see someone win Olympic gold. We've had Olympic champions, we've had world champions, we have guys win junior world titles and U23 titles. So you can see the progress of it.
How do people go about helping? How do they contribute?
So Ohio, the OhioRTC.com is a website.
Cool.
You could reach out to anybody on our staff. Lou Roselli right now who's Olympian. He's overseeing the Olympic Training Center along with Logan Stieber. So reach out to you. Okay. And he'll get in touch with us. Yeah, but yeah.
And we have a lot to look forward to. The season starting now.
Super excited. Tomorrow night, Thursday. Thursday night. Thursday night is our wrestle-offs. So,
and people who want to come and check it out, they can expect, if they ever come to a wrestling match, what can they expect to see? And where?
It's madness. It's fantastic. It's one man. It's mano a mano. It's a crazy crowd. You can get up on your feet and scream and yell.
It's pretty cool.
About 5,000 people to a home match. We've had 15,000 in the shot. We've sold out the shot before. So it's an exciting sport to watch, and it's been great to me. Great to have people.
Well, may you guys just have just a ton of success this year, and for you to accomplish all your goals, all your guys, and to strengthen all the relationships and the bonds that you've created and the lives that you've touched and the impact that you've had that you don't even know about. Hopefully, God will just continue to bless you and just give you as much success that you deserve, because you are first class, Tom. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Everything. And just having you as a friend means a lot. And I love supporting the program. And it makes me feel proud to be part of Ohio State wrestling, because you're leading it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.